Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. With this video, I want to talk about some Star Wars doings, stuff happening and unfolding in the canon, precursor to The Force Awakens. A lot of the stuff that's going on in the comics and the novels that are being released are tie-ins to the official canon. You have Star Wars Rebels, the series. You have the current run of comics, and there's a few different titles, like one is Star Wars, one is Leia, one is, I think, Vader, and there might be a couple others in there. Again, there are novelizations and novels coming out that are meant to tie in officially to the on-screen canon, if you will, leading into The Force Awakens. And in the last couple of days, I think it was the 6th issue of the Star Wars title, released by Marvel, and in conjunction, of course, with Disney and Star Wars and all of that, there was a nuclear bomb drop. As far as a revelation, there was some really cool stuff I'm led to understand between like Boba Fett and Luke, bringing the name Skywalker back to Vader and giving some depth to the idea that Vader didn't necessarily trust or have as much faith as we might first assume in the Emperor and all that kind of stuff. Now, let me first get out of the way right away, say, I cannot follow the comics. I'm subsisting largely on hearing other people's thoughts on them, and, I just have no access. The one comic shop I have anywhere near me is an entire town and a half away, and I have no vehicle. I have no way to get there as of the time of this recording. So I'm just, reading articles every now and then whenever I hear something big or cool is unfolding. And there are lots of theories that I've heard put forth about, maybe Rebels is lining up sort of the timeline going into the original trilogy and leading up to Force Awakens. And, there's a lot of speculation as to who the characters that Daisy Ridley and John Boyega are going to be playing, and, this, that, and the other thing. And, the nuclear bomb drop, as I called it, and spoiler warning for anyone who doesn't want to be spoiled about potential canon conflicts and, revelations. Click off the video if you're not following the comics, if you don't want to engage in sort of a spoilery, potentially, speculation kind of discussion. But in any case, if you're going to be sticking with me, and you may already know about this anyway, it's all over social media and news websites and entertainment websites everywhere. I mean, everyone's talking about it, for better or for worse. Some people are gung-ho about it, some people are really displeased, some are tentative, and I'm falling more in line with the tentative because we don't know as of yet how concrete this is, but we basically find out as, Han and Leia are on this planet, and as I'm led to understand, he's kind of trying to be all romantic and schmoozy to Leia, and the ship comes up and starts firing on them, and they're like, WTF, and out comes this, I guess, bounty hunter or whatever, who's been looking for him over the past couple issues or the previous issue, and she reveals herself to be Sana Solo, claiming to be Han's wife. And he's like, face palm, oh great. And there's lots of rife speculation. What does this mean? Some are talking about how just cataclysmic this almost is because of the influences and effects, manipulations, if you will, it will have on the original trilogy. The, pretty much absolute peak of any sense of canon. It's all on screen, it's all that original trilogy, and even the prequel trilogy, there are elements of that. It exists, it's out there, it's never going away, it's part of canon one way or the other, and they can add garnishes to that and flesh ideas and concepts like the Rebels series did, or rather the Clone Wars series did, to add to that, to add depth to that, make sense of contradictions and everything, add much more depth to it and make it so that the prequels are a little more palatable, that kind of thing. But the chief concern, and I can see where people are coming from, is, well, this fundamentally changes who we know Han to be and what the situation as we know it was in the original trilogy. I believe this unfolds between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So with that in mind, it's like, WTF, this chick is claiming to be married to him, and is it, is she his wife? What does that mean for the relationship between he and Leia? And it could go any number of ways. I mean, I was listening to the cats over at AMC, the Jedi Council, with John Campea and, the Shmo's No guys, and stuff like that. They were talking about the idea, well, maybe this is somebody from his past who's like just messing with them. Maybe it was a situation where he walked into a bar and he took a lady home with him one night and he didn't realize this, that, or the other thing. It was a ruse, whatever. So many different ways it could go. And then there's the opposite end where it completely throws out the window established canon, what we know these characters to be and what we know the story to be, and adds something not necessarily garnishing to it, something very bad. So I'm like of two minds about it. Personally, I'm like, part of me is excited about delving into, because that this woman probably isn't going to be around by the time The Force Awakens happens. She wasn't around so far as we knew in Empire and Jedi. Does she get killed off? What is her story? Is she really married? I've had working theories like, could this be, because she is an African-American character, could she be Lando's sister? And this is like a joke. Maybe Lando conned Han into getting, sidled up with his sister at one point. Maybe they're not related at all. Maybe it's something entirely different. It also got me thinking about the mystery surrounding John Boyega's character and Daisy Ridley's characters in, Force Awakens, because a lot of talk is this the lineage of the Solos? Is this the lineage of the Skywalkers? And I suddenly found myself thinking, we had this reveal through the course of the original trilogy that Luke and Leia were brother and sister. Awkward kiss and all. And so I began to, start wondering, basically, what if they're step siblings? What if we find out there's a reveal to come that, Boyega's character and Ridley's characters, they're related? And maybe, adding sort of validity to the idea that Han was married to this woman, maybe Boyega's character is like a stepson, and it just happens that they find each other, or maybe Ridley's not related to them at all, and, he is the lineage rather than her character, which seems to have been where everyone's, focusing, the idea that she is the one to carry on the torch of the Solo title, and maybe she has Force capabilities and this, that, and the other thing. I don't know. I just, there's so much potential to it to go in a completely horrendous direction that is like bad. Why'd you do it? And then there's so much of it that's like, wow, there's a lot of potential to this, depending on where the story goes from that reveal onward. I'm going to be very intrigued now to follow along with who this Sana Solo is, if she is in fact Han's wife, what the ramifications of that are, how that came to pass to begin with. And I just wanted to venture that idea that maybe, you have people talking about, we might see, I think it's the Kanan character from Rebels showing up at some point in Rogue One, that might tie together, and that might lead into Von Sydow's character in The Force Awakens, and, all of that kind of stuff. There was even a rumor that, Von Sydow was going to be Boba Fett older or whatever. Who knows? And let me just also sideline, because I'm just talking about Star Wars in general. The Boba Fett movie idea, there's rumors that, there might be an Obi-Wan Kenobi trilogy. I would much prefer a standalone with Ewan McGregor coming back. I'd love to see him go toe-to-toe again with, Darth Maul, which is some of the rumors going on. But talking about a Boba Fett movie, I think the thing I'm hearing the least is like, I want a Boba Fett movie that's kind of like the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns, where we don't have to delve into Boba Fett's past. We don't have to investigate what made him who he is. I mean, we had some of that going on in the prequels, and not necessarily for the better. I liked getting a look at Jango Fett. I liked aspects of that playing into the Clone Wars, and we learn sort of what prompts, what is the impetus setting young Boba Fett on the course that would eventually culminate to this badass, mysterious, enigmatic bounty hunter. I don't think we need to, well, here's why. Here's what was happening. I don't think we have to go too in depth with that. And I would love to see, like I say, he's strolling into town. He's got some mission he's on. Somebody's going after. He's got Bosk, IG-88, whatever it is, conflicting. He doesn't need to, you don't have to get in depth with his character. Why can't we just have a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western, the man with no name, but it's Boba Fett? And he just rocks into town, or he rocks into this side of the galaxy. He's on the outer rim, whatever it is. He's going after people. He's got people getting in his way. Flesh out the characters around him that he might be fighting or, set up against, or the person he's going to get. I mean, maybe it's a mission gone wrong where it's like, there was a Quantum Leap episode where Sam Beckett, in his time traveling, he ends up in, I guess, the form of a bounty hunter or something along those lines. And there's a play on, and I don't want to see Boba Fett going the romance angle, don't get me wrong, but there was a sort of play on, this chick that the bounty hunter was going after. She's a really wormy kind of character. She can get out of trouble on her own means and her own devices. And there's a banter back and forth between them. Maybe Boba Fett goes after somebody, and it's one of those rare instances where that badass, like the Fonz, he's like, well, I am seeing this in a new light. And now Boba Fett's got to help this person get away from whoever he was contracted to bring them back to, that kind of situation. So many ways you can tell a Boba Fett standalone story is the point, is the crux of what I'm talking about here, where you don't need to flesh out the backstory. And I'm very much in agreement, calling back to the AMC guys and the Jedi Council thing, John Campea, who is going to be sorely missed when he leaves, as of the time of this recording. That's happening very soon. And it'll be a shame, but, he'll be going on to new things. But something I keenly agree with him on is, like, I don't want too much investigation of the backgrounds of these characters. There are aspects of the Lando Calrissian character where I'd like to see how he comes from being this sort of pirate rogue to being a man of means in Bespin. I'd like to see that story. Maybe in a comic, maybe in a novel. It doesn't have to be a movie. There are aspects to the idea of the, sort of adversarial relationship between a young Han Solo and Boba Fett that intrigue me, that I'd like to hear a little bit about. But it's like there's so much, just multitudes and multitudes of minutiae that have been built up, most of which, has been cast away as no longer being official. But I don't want to keep going backward. And I don't like the idea of telling a young Han Solo story when we don't have Harrison Ford, unless they fully render a CG younger version of him, kind of like what they did with Jeff Bridges' character Flynn in Tron Legacy. Something along those lines, maybe, if the story's really good. But I feel like there's just so much, you're opening up a can of worms, and why do that? Why, it's unnecessary. Now, with, this ties back to this idea of this issue number 6 comic where we're finding out, tentatively, Han Solo's married. How did that happen? Is there any truth to it? Is there something more going on? I find that fascinating. It's kind of like when they pulled out the Superior Spider-Man angle in Marvel's Spider-Man comics, where Doc Ock had brain shifted himself. He was, on his deathbed with Peter Parker, and now his consciousness was the primary consciousness. You still had wisps of Peter Parker still existing in there as a conscience, but you had Spider-Man rolling around, and it was Doc Ock. That was highly intriguing to me. That was something we hadn't seen before, and it spoke volumes to fleshing out Doc Ock as a character, but also Peter Parker in a way, because you got to see the way he conducted himself as the hero in his personal life as well, in a whole new light. And is this aspect of Han having been married, potentially, is that the same kind of exploration? Is it going to serve a greater purpose or a much lesser horrendous purpose in affecting potentially the movie canon, Will it be much ado about nothing? Will it be easily explained and, oh, okay, we see what we were doing. It was just a sideline thing. All of these things come into question, but as I say, it also leads me to speculate with the limited amount of knowledge I have, just cherry-picking things I've heard. You know, the speculation about Ridley and Boyega's characters in The Force Awakens, you know, Von Sydow, and how that pertains potentially to Rebels, also, you know, sidling into Rogue One. It seems like there is a grand scheme at work, and I'm just kind of trying to fill in the plot holes in my own mind, thinking, you know, could Boyega's character be a son or stepson of Han? Could Ridley not be who we thought she was in being their daughter? That's to say, Han and Leia's daughter. All these different facets, you know, I find absolutely rife for speculation and intrigue. And so, I mean, that's pretty much the limit of what I wanted to talk about in this video today. I don't really talk about, you know, Star Wars with the speculations and everything ever, really. Very rarely do I, even though I'm following it, not stringently, but I'm following it enough because I'm excited about it. You know, I'm excited about new Star Wars. I've recently done a video where I talked about, and I'll link that in the description below if you haven't seen it, where I talked about having a sort of new viewpoint and perspective on the prequel trilogy. I love all 6 movies. I found a way to love them all and not be one of these fans who's like, the prequels are horrible. They should never have been made. They shouldn't exist. We should turn a blind eye to them. I don't think we should turn a blind eye to them. They are great overall. They do have problems, and I feel like a lot of those, you know, phrases when referencing them are excuses. They are what they are, and I've just come to the point where I've accepted them for what they are, and I prefer to more, you know, realize and pinpoint in my own mind's eye the positive aspects of them. Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, you know, when you get to Revenge of the Sith, that whole breakdown between he and Anakin, which, you know, everything that came before with Anakin and Padme, blah, blah, blah. Just so much that, you know, it could have been much better, but still, there was a lot of good all throughout. You look at Phantom Menace, love Darth Maul, love that whole dynamic. At least what I hope is the very first, you know, snowflakes of just a snowball going down the hill, potentially, of a story between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul. You know, in the second one, Attack of the Clones, I love the whole Obi-Wan versus Jango Fett thing. I always did like investigating more of the Jedi Council. I am somebody who likes Mace Windu. Bite me. If you don't agree with me, fine. You don't have to, but I'm just going to be honest with the things I like. Those were aspects I liked. And then almost all of, you know, Revenge of the Sith. I mean, there are people who even have problems with Yoda opening up a can of whoop-ass, and I thought that was awesome. I loved it. I loved seeing Yoda just exuding this strength and this prowess and this speed. We didn't need to see it. You know, it didn't necessarily... I'm not one of these people who believes that, you know, it undid the resounding nature of his character in the original trilogy, where it's a you know, lesser is more situation, where it's like Jaws. You know, you don't see the shark, and thus he becomes more ominous. You don't see Yoda wielding his prowess, and thus he's stronger for it. I don't necessarily agree with that. It's something, it's a case-by-case basis, and I don't think Yoda was harmed for having seen that little, small in stature Jedi fighting, you know, Palpatine and all these kinds of things. I think there was just a lot of action adventure that I was pumped for along those lines. So, I mean, just long-winded rambling talking about Star Wars. You know, little aspects here and there that I've been noting and just vaguely following that have caught my interest and ramped up my excitement and speculation point, you know, talking points. And I wanted to pass that off with you guys who are fellow Star Wars fans who, like me, you know, maybe you're not following it to the letter, you're not following every little last nook and cranny that's unfolding, but you're intrigued, you're excited, and I love having discussions with you guys. So anything you want to, you know, speculate about in the comments below, anything you want to talk about, bring up, you know, ask me about my thoughts on, whatever it is. I always love having the interaction back and forth with you guys. And Star Wars is, you know, it's very much one of my earliest fandoms, probably the earliest, because I've got pictures of me as like almost infant, wearing Star Wars shirts, and I had a Star Wars pillowcase I still have to this day, still use. And it's just, Star Wars is a point of love. Of course, I do have other fandoms that eclipse it to certain degrees. Star Trek, Doctor Who. I'm not as rifely familiar with the Star Wars, the whole pantheon that existed, especially in the expanded universe and everything. Primarily, I focus on the movies, the 6 films, and one day I want to get into Rebels, like if I can catch up with DVDs of it and everything, because I have no access to watch it. But it's just, Star Wars is the thing I want to be able to talk about when these things occur to me, and I hope you'll join in the conversation at the end of the day. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say in this particular video, and I'd love to hear from you, as I say in the comments below, what you think about any of this. My speculations as to how this may be all tying together, what your reaction was to the potential of Han's being married. We still don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but were you shocked? Were you excited? Are you just, teeth-grittingly praying that this isn't true, trying to use your force powers to undo it, all of that. I'd love to hear from you. And so, yeah, otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. May the force be with you.